Hi there, and welcome to today's episode of A Different Way of Seeing, a podcast where we talk all things disability. I'm your host, Lois Strachan. Today we are joined by a guest who, like me, has a visual impairment, and he is joining us from Namibia, the country that adjoins the country in which I live, which is South Africa. Simalumba Nawa is an advocate, he is a blogger, and he works to show the business case of hiring people with disabilities, which I believe is a really important conversation. And that's why I've invited him to join us on the show today. Simalumba, how are you doing today?
Hi, Lois. Thank you so much for having me on. I am well, thank you. How are you doing?
I am doing great, thank you. And I just want to just check. We can stick with the official, Simalumba, or more casually, I believe you go by Sima. Are you okay
Yeah,
with us to use that going on from here?
no, Sima is absolutely fine. I am affectionately known by the name of Sima, so we can go with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's great. So I think Sima, the best place for me to start, where I usually start with my guests, is just to say, I know a little bit about you, but my audiences don't. And would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of your backstory?
Certainly. So, who is Sima? I think the best place to start is in my childhood. So I was originally born in Zambia. And we migrated here in 1999/2000 with my family. So I've been living in Namibia for the majority of my life. I've been here for 20 plus years, and that sort of informs the rest of my life. We moved here, and it was a big change for all of us. We had to adapt. We had to learn new languages. We had to attend new schools. We had to make new friends. Starting from scratch. So that has informed most of my life. But outside of that, I am a speaker. I am a trainer and a disability inclusion consultant. I run a company called the Blind Spot Communication and Consultants, and our mission and our vision is to do one thing: reframe disability as a competitive advantage. Now, company aside, my story is one that is on two sides of the same coin, in that I wasn't born with my disability. I acquired my disability through an accident. We are on 4 years ago now. So majority of my life, I was a person without a disability, and then there was an introduction done between me and disability, and we both said hi, and we took a seat on the couch, and we are now having conversation about what my lived experience looks like at present
Mm.
day.
What is your background in terms of employment and that side of thing? What is the field that you were working in when you had your accident?
So my academic background is in IT. I studied computer science. I have a diploma in computer science, and I was pursuing my bachelor's degree in computer science. And during that pursuit, I had my accident. So my employment is in networking administration. I worked as a network administrator for 2.5 years for a business company here in Namibia, and I did an internship at a logistics company here for 6 months. So my work experience isn't the greatest, but in that short time, I managed to learn a lot.
I think it's one of those fields that does change a lot, and it's certainly becoming a foundational industry for most things in our world these days.
Agreed.
So, obviously, experiencing a disability, acquiring a disability as an adult, can be a fairly traumatic experience that requires a degree of learning to adapt. Tell us about the rehabilitation process that you had to go through when you received your diagnosis of a visual impairment.
So my rehabilitation process was very interesting. I think I use the word interesting for
I
this
was going to
context.
say, in that particular tone of voice, I'm very curious to know more.
It was interesting in terms of like we didn't know where to start. We didn't know where to start. It was, quite, it took me a while to even want to leave my house. So
Mm,
rehabilitation started at home, really. Getting rehabilitated with, doing the basic things again, trying to learn the most fundamental of things. And therein, I found my greatest frustration, which is I'm a perfectionist. So having to take on the heart of a student once again, like learning how to make a cup of coffee.
mm.
Those small things, and burning your hands so many times. So the rehabilitation process was interesting. But with the support of my family, the birth of my son, and my partner by my side, and of course my faith leaders, and my faith in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Those are some of the foundations that helped me find, a cause to live again and find my footing and, learn how to, do everything from scratch. And those are the things that help build my confidence in order to now go into the world and go to the rehabilitation centers in my country to learn about, assistive technology, about screen readers, about, cane etiquette. I didn't even know there was a thing like white cane etiquette, right? And the white cane techniques and how to, walk with a white cane and just find some sort of independence in this new life that I'm living. So interesting in that sense, as in there are many layers to my rehabilitation. It's the mental rehabilitation, it's the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual as well. So all four have played a major role in me pivoting into the space I exist in now. So yeah.
That initial overwhelm, initially not knowing where to turn, what is possible. I mean, it can be absolutely traumatic.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think for each one of us, it is a process. We learn one little step forward, and suddenly we start realizing that more is possible. And
Mhm.
each step, I can remember, when I acquired my blindness, that it really was. It was that sense of not knowing what I would be able to do, coming to the understanding that it was possible for me to learn new ways of doing things, and then
Mhm.
slowly reaching the point where I am now, where I basically say I can do anything that a sighted person can. My tools and my techniques may differ,
Mhm.
but just because they're different doesn't mean that they are inferior.
Exactly.
And I think
Exactly.
that is one of our biggest challenges to overcome is people kind of look at us and go, "Oh, shame, poor person. They are not, they need a white cane or a guide
Mhm.
dog to help them get around, or they need this assistive technology so they can be able to do stuff." But it's not like that. It's
It really
just,
is. Yeah.
yeah, it's just doing things in a different way and accepting that we all do things differently.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
might put in your sugar in your cup first. I put in my coffee first. We're making the same thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. This is interesting.
Yes.
I've never thought about it. And that's a very simple technique or some simple example to give, because I normally use about recipes about everybody does bakes cakes in slightly different ways. But
Mhm.
the coffee one is just that little bit simpler. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I like to break things down to the most simplest analogies so that people get them. Like understand, because when you bring recipes, they're like, "Oh no, but I don't like cake," and you're like, "Okay."
yeah. I don't bake.
Right? Yes.
Okay, right. You're not going to get my example then. Okay, yeah. Maybe if you don't mind me stealing your cup of coffee example there, I should start
Oh no, please
integrating
go
that into
ahead.
my work. Thanks.
Please go ahead. That is a freebie.
Ah, I'm very grateful. Thank you, sir.
Mm.
So I'm curious. I mean, I know some of the struggles that we have here in South Africa with the levels of inclusion in society and the workplace for people with disabilities.
Hmm.
I was chatting to someone the other day talking about the levels of inclusion in society in the workplace in Nigeria. How are they then in Namibia?
Levels of inclusion in society in the workplace. So those are two separate environments. Society, the biggest struggle we have is still attitudes.
Hmm.
The stereotypes, the stigmas, the misconceptions, the negative connotations, the unconscious bias, all those things still exist in our society. They are not as prevalent as they used to be
Oh,
once upon a
interesting.
time,
Yeah.
but they're still there. It's just that they now have a new face. So you would have a lot of you'd encounter a lot of microaggressions,
Yeah.
a lot of ableism,
Hmm.
and it's not that these things are done deliberately. At least I hope not. Uh, but what you'd find is that most of these things are learned behavior.
Yeah.
So people are just literally copying and pasting what they've seen, been told,
Yes.
experienced. And there's also a big separation and segregation in the way we live our lives. So there isn't that human connection between persons with and persons without disabilities. We exist in different worlds for the majority of our human experience. So that contributes to the separation, that contributes to the disconnect, that contributes to the lack of empathy, that contributes to the apathy that society has towards us. So that's the one barrier out of a million
Yeah.
that is
Man.
very much prevalent in Namibia. Now, when we go to the workplace, that's a different kettle of fish because there is a system and structures and organizational policy, legislation. And there's a lot of red tape when it comes to integrating persons with disabilities into the workplace. So you're fighting two battles on two different fronts, right?
Hmm.
And you have to make a different case on each side to say that, okay, there's a business case, there's a business argument. You bring out all the stats that teams and companies that are more diverse are 30% more productive and 80% more profitable. The numbers are there, the metrics make sense, but now, again, even in the workplace, you find the same attitudes, the unconscious bias,
Yeah.
the learned behavior, the cognitive dissonance, the ableism that exists in those spaces. It has just put on a suit and tie, right? So
Well,
so
ultimately, organizations are made up of human beings. So
human
all of
beings
all the social stereotypes are going to flow into the workplace as well.
into the workplace exactly. So but then you'll find that your approach in society and your approach in the workplace has to be different because you're basically speaking two different languages.
Yeah.
In society you are speaking more to the human side of things. In the workplace you're speaking a language that they understand, which is their bottom line. So two different languages, but you're addressing the same person. It's very
Mm.
interesting to have that conversation.
And yet,
So yeah.
you know, my sense is that while perhaps we are less aware of it, society is made up of structures and policies and
Mhm,
that type of thing as well. So there is still a lot of
mhm. The social
systemic.
constructs,
Yeah.
yes, the social constructs, the rules of engagement, those unwritten rules, yes, they do exist. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And it's one of the things, you know, when I was studying coaching, I had a conversation under supervision, which was basically around that very topic, is around, well, no, not around disability, but around as someone who has not ever worked in a corporate, do I have the skills and the ability to coach someone who is exposed to a corporate background?
Mm.
And I think the word there that came out very much in the response I was given, and the realization I had was around the systemic experiences are often similar. And that
Mm-hmm,
means
mm-hmm,
that, yes, we may be needing to talk a slightly different language in a slightly different way.
mm-hmm,
There is less in our day-to-day life about return on investment, the business case, bottom line, and profit. And
mm-hmm.
yet, we're still talking about a return on a human investment
Mm.
and the bottom line of human engagement. So, different topics, and yet I think they're very
Hmm.
closely interwoven in many ways.
You've given me something to think about there. I'm definitely going to take that framework and just expand on it because that was brilliant. Wow.
And yeah, I mean it's that's what these conversations are for. So
Mm, mm.
great, good to know. And we can have that as an exchange. So it's now one and one. So you've
Yes,
given me
yes,
something with that cup of coffee, and I've given you something to think about on your side. So I'm happy
yes.
with that.
Look at us returning on investment. I love it.
So let's look then in a little bit closer at some of the work that you're doing.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit more about, oh, that was bad English. Tell us a little more about how you engage with companies and the work that you're doing. What are you trying and hoping to achieve in
Mm.
engaging with companies on the business case of disability hiring? Well, disability
So,
inclusion. It's not just
mhm.
hiring.
Yes, it is across board really. So I think the main thing that I'm trying to achieve, that we're trying to achieve as a company, is to help organizations, companies, corporates understand and be open to the idea that there is value in hiring persons with disabilities, that there is value in creating accessible materials, that there
Mm,
is value in creating accessible digital assets, your
yeah.
websites, your applications, your correspondence, your social media communication. There is value in having those parts of your company be accessible to persons with disabilities. Why? Because it's an untapped market. There's an
Mm,
untapped talent pool there. There's immense potential that is just there. Like no one, it's literally a gold mine that's
yeah.
waiting to be explored. So that is where our tagline is, we want to reframe disability as a competitive advantage. Because when you integrate and incorporate persons with disabilities across board, across all your operations, what you not only get is a more productive and diverse team, a more social brand, a more, you get more customer loyalty from all of those things. The other thing that you get is better product development.
Mm,
So what we try to, or what we normally present as a business case is we use the tech giants, the Apples, the Googles, the Microsofts. Safaricom is another one in Kenya. Um, who else is there? There are a couple of them who have created extremely better products and that have innovated beyond persons with disabilities such that everyone now uses those innovations. For example, Siri. Siri
mm,
wasn't intentionally made for everyone. It was made for people who weren't able to, who had mobility issues. So they would be able to use voice control. But now that is a tool that everyone uses, right? So we present those arguments to say that when you develop products for everyone that are inclusive, that are accessible, you end up creating a better product. So
yeah.
and you end up producing better services that can cut across board. And then on the other side, we talk about the entrepreneurship space in disability, the talent that is untapped in that space in terms of entrepreneurs who are, you know, who have different skills, different abilities, different who exist in different spaces. They need access to funding. So now, when we're talking about micro loans and microfinancing or revenue-based financing, or grant type of financing for persons with disabilities. The whole point of creating those spaces is so that we can build an ecosystem in the space. We can create value and create a value chain so that persons with disabilities can then contribute to the socio-economic development of the
Hmm.
country. And we all know that when we tap into groups that have been marginalized or sidelined for a long time, you discover that there is an immense advantage in empowering and equipping and capacitating those groups because it then allows you to compete at a global level even when you scale. So that is basically the argument that you make as a company.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, I was just thinking about the concept of groupthink and how
Hmm.
that causes company thinking to stagnate. Because
Hmm.
if we are all the same, we often think the same because we come from the same value systems, the same lived experience, the same, the list can go on.
Hmm.
And making more diverse teams, and that's diverse across the spectrum of ability, age, gender, race, culture,
Yes.
sexual identification. It goes across all of them.
Hmm.
It really can create a space in which there is improved productivity, improved creativity. But I think
Hmm.
one of the things that I didn't hear, but I'm pretty certain enters into your thinking and your working as well, is the business advantage that including people who are by necessity problem solvers, creatives,
Yes.
and those are skills that very often are, well, we initiators, we have to have initiative. We
Yes.
have to have drive as
Hmm.
people with disabilities. Otherwise, we are not going to achieve anything. And
Exactly.
those are skills that are highly sought after in the business world as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's
Being
a
being
lot in that.
being a self-starter, and also understanding that we exist in a world that wasn't built for us.
Yeah.
So we are constantly problem solving, and that improves our level to think critically, to solve problems analytically, to solve problems in a different way. So now, when you
Mm.
have that train of thought and that kind of thinking in the workplace, or in an incubator, or in an accelerator in a business, the level of innovation that can be reached is cannot be measured. The
Yeah.
only thing is that a lot of corporates or companies want tangible. They want tangible things, and I'm
Mm.
like, you can't put a price on this kind of excellence. You really can't. You have to wait, and you have to really invest, and obviously that involves risk, but you will get a return on investment. So yeah.
And it also takes time.
Hmm. That is my number one question. How long is it going to take us to become inclusive? And I'm like, I don't know. But
Ah,
if you start today, you'll be one step closer to finding out.
so true. And
Yeah.
I know as advocates, whether in a social space or in a business space, there's often a lot of frustration because we feel like we are saying the same things over and over and over and seeing very little movement in society and in business. But if we're even managing to shift one or two people, that's still one or two people that have been shifted.
Yes,
So
one or
it
two
may
people
be a,
more than.
yeah, it may feel like a thankless task, but um, it's still important to carry on fighting the good fight, as it were.
Yes, sometimes the work that we do makes me think about the way the internet used to be back in the day.
Yeah.
Dial-up internet, like you would be sitting in front of that computer and trying to download something, and
Hmm.
you are looking at that screen, and you're like, "Is it even moving?" Like,
1%,
yes, so
2%.
much. Yes, exactly. Sometimes it even goes back to 1%. You're like, how? So, but yeah, the work that we do at the end of the day, it's impact work. It's a labor of love. So, I wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world, really.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Okay, so you've spoken about some of the challenges and the conversations that you're finding you're needing to have. But what do you think are the greatest barriers that are preventing the inclusion? We've spoken about the social side, we've spoken a bit about the need for the return on investment, the business case, but ultimately, what would you say are those major barriers?
I think the biggest barrier to in through inclusion is accessibility, or let me just say access. Um, Access to information, access to resources, access to opportunities, access to upward mobility in terms of education, in terms of skills training, in terms of capacity building. So you find that the biggest challenge is information.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you hear that the different OPDs, organizations of persons with disabilities, are doing different initiatives, but you don't have information on what those initiatives are.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get involved? How do we, when there are opportunities, where is that information being communicated? So I think the biggest barrier for us is access to these different spaces, because only once you are in that space can you now leverage your expertise, your skills, your knowledge, your talent in a way that you can impact the space positively and make a change. So I think that for me is the biggest one, is access to information.
And I think, in the mobility space, there's a huge problem with access to a physical space.
Hmm.
For us as people who are blind or visually impaired, it is more around access to the information. The access is still the challenge,
Yes.
but it just requires slightly different solutions, I think. But
Hmm.
I'm curious there because I'm hearing how interlinked everything seems to be.
Hmm.
That taking small steps forward in several areas can result in steps forward overall, which I
Hmm.
do believe. I do
Yes.
believe that very much, as I've probably
Yes.
already intimated. Um, but it is, I mean, what is stopping that happening? Is it mindset? Is it political organizational will? Is it a systemic thing? Where do we need to start leveraging to start moving those little snowballs that are going to start
Hmm.
turning into avalanches of information and access?
Oof, where do we start?
Yeah.
um, so in my experience, and what I've noticed is you find that um, so persons with disabilities, we know that we are not a monolith. We're not monolithic. We have different needs, we have different wants, we have different views, we have different opinions. But I think if we want to make astronomical and exponential progress, we need to come together and decide, okay, where is the biggest barrier? Okay, that. We identify X is the biggest barrier, say legislation and policy or
Hmm.
political influences. we are going to decide that we're going to band together and we're going to attack that space until the change happens, until that scale tips over to the other side. Once we've knocked down that domino, like that, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, we knock down that big domino first, we attack that one. And then what will happen is the domino effect, and every other domino will start falling bit by bit. So I think we need to come together first as persons with disabilities. Now, it will be very difficult for all the groups to decide on one thing. But if we can decide on one thing from each group, I think that will help a lot so that we tackle that. Say, for example, no, we need better education, which is something we need in Namibia. We need better inclusive education. We need better access to education. Then we decide, okay, we're going to come together, leaders, advocates, stakeholders, everyone, and we're going to attack that space. And once that domino topples over, we regroup. We say, okay, education has got some progress. What's next? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
representation in the political landscape. Cool. We attack that space. We make some progress, and then we regroup. Just like that. I think if we take that approach, it'll be better because what I've noticed is that we have some groups pulling in the north direction, another group is pulling south, another group is pulling east, another group is pulling west. So we're doing a lot, but we're not getting a lot done.
I think it's very true. You know, I hear a lot of people in the disability sector talking about the need to unify, the
Mm-hmm.
need, the power of
In
having a
unity,
unified voice.
yes.
And at this stage, we seem to be very segmented, not just between one disability and another, but even within our own
Yes,
disabilities.
exactly.
And finding that way to unify. And I think there's a lot of people, and I count myself amongst that number, and it has both advantages and disadvantages. A lot of us have strong opinions.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, there's part of me which is the trainer facilitator, the coach that's going, can you imagine sitting down with thousands of people with disabilities from
Mm-hmm.
different cultures, different countries, and facilitating that conversation?
Wow.
Just imagine how amazing that would be.
That
And I
would be.
suspect frustrating.
I mean, but the frustration will come with that. I mean,
Yeah,
because you're handling a lot of different opinions, people want
yeah,
different things.
yeah.
But if we can find consensus, say this is what we want, this is we build a priority list.
Hmm.
Say urgent, important, not so important, and then
Nice
leisure.
to have. Yeah.
Right? Yes,
And I mean,
yes,
ultimately, you know, having these conversations with people from across the globe, I have a lot of the same challenges being raised. And I
mm-hmm.
find that really interesting that it doesn't matter if you're in a first world country, in a developing country, if you're from the East, from the West, often the challenges that we're facing are very similar. And
Indeed.
I think from that perspective, there is space for us to build a sense of unity and a sense of community
Mm-hmm.
globally.
Yes.
Um, and I think the power in that is pretty remarkable. The
It
logistics
is.
may be a bit difficult, but hey, let's give some thought to this and see what we
Like,
can come up with.
exactly. I think the greatest revolutions that have happened globally have happened by people unifying and uniting
Yeah.
with one voice, and that's how you see societies evolve. That's how you see
Hmm.
great leaders, evolve and become established because of that unity that existed in those movements. So
Yeah.
yeah, we need to emulate the same thing.
And I mean, the classic example for me as a person growing up in South Africa is, of course, the destruction of the apartheid system.
Hmm.
It was only when people were working together and the force of public will, the
Hmm.
concerted efforts of unified people, that that apartheid got destroyed and dismantled piece by piece. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
I want to turn from kind of the conversation that we've been having around disability and look at another aspect of your work, and that is your speaking.
Mm,
Because I started seeing you pop up more and more on my Facebook feed about a conference that you were, a disability conference, admittedly, but a conference that you were speaking at. I think it was in Kenya.
yes, it was in Kenya.
So tell me about your global speaking work.
Wow. So my speaking journey has been interesting again. We'll use the word. I think interesting would be the theme of my life. My speaking journey started about 4 years ago, when my pastor, ironically enough, because I communicated to him that I would like to learn how to do public speaking. And he was like, "Oh, I used to be a Toastmaster back in the day. And, try and see if they're still around in Namibia." So I did my Googles, I found a club, I joined, and instantly I fell in love. I was like, okay, this is where I am supposed to be right now. I'm not sure what this means at the moment, but I was just glad to be in a space where I was able to, use my voice and learn and also rediscover my voice at the same time. So
Mm,
I was learning how to do public speaking, but I was also learning how to authentically narrate my story, authentically, craft my ideas, my concepts, my thoughts into a message that can be impactful, influential, and have some positive impact in society. So started out in Toastmasters, and then 2022, the same year, I took to the TEDx UNAM
wow.
stage. Yeah, so so that same year, I spoke at one of the TEDx events hosted here by one of our universities, and that was my first big stage,
Hmm.
and it was really interesting again to take to that stage. And I found out shortly afterwards that I was the first person with a disability on that stage, and I was like, wait, why? Because I didn't understand why, again, representation is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
So, and then that snowballed into me speaking at a few continental engagements. And then I attended the same conference in Kenya, the Inclusive Africa Conference, hosted by Enable. I attended it last year for the first time. And then the same time, I was selected for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, representing Namibia. So I went, on that leadership exchange program for 3 months, and then came back. And then I went back in December last year for the Hurricane Disability Employment Summit in Washington, D.C.,
Oh,
to
wow.
speak on that platform about how African governments can get disability inclusion right. So, yeah, it's been a whirlwind of a journey. If you asked me when I started speaking whether I would end up speaking in Kenya, in Washington D.C., in Iowa, I would be like, why are you lying to me? So yeah, so again, then this year I was invited back to Kenya to speak at the same conference,
Hmm.
the Inclusive Africa Conference, hosted by Enable, and of course, I duly obliged. And yeah, that's the one you're talking about that popped up on my feed.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I have been in these spaces for a while, and I'm learning so much from being in these rooms, these environments, and it's in my personal capacity. I'm making sure that more Namibians with disabilities um, get into these spaces as well, so that we can have access to information, access to networks, opportunities, resources, so that we can expand the work that we do, um, not only regionally but globally. Be a
Yeah.
voice representing our countries globally, because so that we can also have a global impact and influence on where disability is, because whatever the global north decides is going to affect us. So we need to get to a space where we are part of those conversations as well.
I agree with you completely. And I think that the richness and diversity of the knowledge that people and organizations have, if that can be shared. and
Mhm.
just disseminated. That is, it's so crucially important to empower people because
It
people
is. It
ultimately, no matter where we are, where we come from, people are people. So,
is.
yeah, we have the same needs. Also, one other thing that I've been popping into and reading every now and then is your blog. So tell us
Mhm.
about the Dear Sighted People blog.
Ah, you know, the story behind the Dear-Sighted People. So there's a TV show that I used to watch a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was still sighted at this point. It's called Dear White People. Um, and it is a show that overly states the obvious things that white people in America assume about African Americans over there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wait, there's a show about this. And then I was like, wait, let me take that concept and then apply it to my experiences, my interactions that I've had over the few years with people and use those use those experiences to inform, educate, and spark conversation
Yeah.
through humor, sarcasm, and satire, which also speaks to my personality. I I love comedy. I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy. I
Yep.
love
Yep.
everything comedy. So I'd like to think I have a good sense of humor. I'd like to think.
Well, I listened
Um,
to your TEDx talk and yeah, you should give it a go.
uh, Okay, great. So yeah, so that's where the Decided People was birthed, and it has sparked a new conversation again in the with sighted people in terms of they're like, wait, someone actually asked you to touch their face, and I'm like, yes,
Or
It-
more often, but isn't that what normally blind people do?
yeah,
Which
exactly,
is what
exactly.
I had a stand-up fight with someone in a shop once because she insisted that
Mhm.
blind people always touch people's faces. And I'm like, no, we don't. But you must, I want you to touch mine. I'm like, why?
Yeah, that it's weird.
And it got
It was
really
weird.
uncomfortable. It was, yeah,
Yes.
anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
one of those.
that's one of those moments where you're like, you know what, I think this is grounds for, smacking someone with a cane, but you can't do that
You
because it's
can't,
frowned
no, because then it gets people angry and then start talking about how horrible we all are. So
Exactly.
yeah, unfortunately, we don't.
Exactly. So yeah, but dear sighted people is just my humorous take on my lived experience over the past 4 years. That's literally it.
Great, thank you.
Mhm,
So we've spoken about your speaking, about your business, about your blog.
mhm,
If people want to connect with you, if they want to reach out to you in your company, if they want to look for your blog,
mhm.
how can they find you? Where should they be looking for you online?
I think the easiest place to look for me would probably be on Facebook. Uh, my Facebook handle. Is it even called a handle? Yeah, I'm old. Wow.
I'll put the link in the show notes so people will be able to just click on it and they'll find you.
Yeah, cool. So, Simalumba Nawa on Facebook, Sima Speaks everywhere else, and then Simalumba Nawa on LinkedIn as well. You can connect with me on those platforms.
Okay.
My email address, uh, you can put that in the show notes as well. But it's simaspeaks@simaspeaks.com. That's my email address. So, anyone who's looking to hire me as a consultant, I am open for that business. Thank you. So yeah, that's how you can reach me.
And website?
My website is under construction. Under
Okay.
construction, yes, but it's simaspeaks.com. It's under
It
construction. It will be up and running earliest September.
so
Earliest
hopefully,
September.
I'm not certain when I'll be releasing this. We are recording towards
Mhm,
the end of August.
mhm.
So it may be that semaspeaks.com will be up and running by the time this comes out. And we'll have to ask our viewers and listeners to hop online and check.
Challenge
So
accepted. Challenge accepted.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sima.
Hmm.
So, what advice would you like to give to business owners who may be listening to this and going, Sima's making a lot of sense.
Hmm.
I need to start exploring more about the business case of, of inclusion, about making my business more inclusive.
Hmm.
Where should they start?
I like to use the example of the internet. When the internet first became a thing, and a lot of companies were apprehensive, a lot of companies were resisting the change. But one thing you found was those companies that embraced the new normal, for a lack of a better word, the new internet, they are the companies that went on to do the greatest things and stood the test of time. And the same argument can be made for disability.
Yeah.
The companies who hop on the bandwagon first will be the ones to reap the benefits of that investment first. And that will make you a leader in the space, that will make you an innovator, and you will fall on the right side of history. After all, history is written by those who have won the battle. So, the question I have for business owners, companies, corporates is which side of history do you want to be on?
Oh, that's definitely a good question to leave people thinking about. Sima, thank you so much for taking the time out today to come and share some of your thoughts, some of your ideas, and your work with the listeners and viewers on A Different Way of Seeing. It has been such a pleasure to chat to you, and yeah, definitely giving us lots to think about.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, Lois. It was indeed a fruitful conversation, and I can say we're both gonna walk away with something of value,
Yeah.
definitely.
And as will the people who choose to engage with the recordings when they come out.
Yes,
So
yes.
thank you for giving us so much to think about. Really, really appreciate it. So Simalumba Nawa from Namibia, originally from Zambia. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for joining us on A Different Way of Seeing. And we will definitely stay connected and hopefully have you back as a guest on the show sometime in the future as you start, well, continue to move not only the working business, well, the business world in Namibia, but globally as well.